Just recently, they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
I've been reading about it, and I know that there's some contention, there's some discussion and debate about it.
The Shroud of Turin has baffled scientists, theologians, and historians for centuries. But Mel Gibson is now stepping into the flames with accusations that could unravel it all.
Scourged, beaten, the wounds on the thorns, the hands, the feet, and the scourging, and the hairstyle was from the 1st century.
His bombshell revelations hint at a deliberate cover-up, and the facts he revealed left people reeling. On a platform as unabashed as the Joe Rogan podcast, Gibson held nothing back. With certainty and shocking simplicity, he disproves the official story of the Holy Cloth. But what exactly is he revealing that's awakening the world?
One of the most controversial artifacts in history. The Shroud of Turin is a burial cloth.
Let's take a closer look. The Shroud of Turin, unveiling the mystery of Christ's image. The Shroud of Turin is unlike anything the world has ever seen. At first glance, it appears to be an old linen cloth, aged and worn by time. But upon closer inspection, it reveals something that has puzzled scientists, religious scholars, and historians for centuries. An image, not just any image, but the haunting imprint of a man's body, shown both front and back. This figure bears the unmistakable marks of brutal torture, crucifixion, and deep suffering. Bloodstains are visible, along with traces of sweat, bodily fluids, and mucus, details no medieval artist could have replicated by accident. What's even more mind-boggling is that this image is not painted, drawn, or burned into the fabric. Modern imaging tools, including the VP8 analyzer, originally designed for NASA, have confirmed that the image on the shroud contains three-dimensional data. This means the image doesn't just rest on the surface. It holds depth as if it were encoded by something far beyond the scope of human understanding or technology. And despite decades of careful study, today's scientists still cannot reproduce the full range of characteristics found on the cloth. The mystery deepened in 1898 when an amateur Italian photographer named Secondo Pia took the first photograph of the shroud. As he developed the negatives in a dark room, what emerged was not a vague shape or blurred shadow, but a startlingly clear image of a man, eyes closed as though in eternal rest. For many, it was undeniable proof. The features mirrored the traditional depictions of Jesus Christ: long hair, a beard, and a face etched with agony. To this day, millions worldwide believe it to be the true image of Jesus, miraculously preserved. Though the Bible doesn't refer to it by name, the Gospels do mention that Jesus' body was wrapped in linen cloth after the crucifixion, specifically by Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus. Could this be that very cloth? Venturing into this ancient enigma with bold certainty and startling accusations is the individual behind the passion of the Christ. Mel Gibson's divine mission. What does he know that the world does not? Join us. Mel Gibson's divine mission, from Hollywood icon to keeper of sacred truths. Mel Gibson, a name instantly recognizable across the globe, didn't just stumble into the spotlight. He earned it, carved it, and in many ways redefined it. While today he's known as an Oscar-winning actor and director with global acclaim, his beginnings were far from glamorous. Born Melcolm Cilla Gerard Gibson in 1956, he was the 6th of 11 children in a devout Catholic family. Though raised in New York, his life took a dramatic turn when his father, a staunch opponent of the Vietnam War, relocated the entire family to Australia to shield his sons from the draft. It was in Australia that Mel's artistic journey truly began. Immersed in theater from a young age, he enrolled in Sydney's prestigious National Institute of Dramatic Art. There he trained intensively, mastering the classics of Shakespeare and developing the raw emotional power that would later define his career. His early performances were grounded in stage work, but the silver screen soon beckoned. The moment that shifted, everything came in the form of Mad Max, George Miller's gritty dystopian masterpiece. The role launched Mel into international stardom and solidified his place in cinematic history. But he wasn't done. Lethal Weapon would follow, turning Gibson into a bankable action hero in Hollywood. And while many would be content with fame, Mel sought something deeper. He turned to directing, and the results were nothing short of legendary. Braveheart was a cinematic triumph, but it was the passion of the Christ that stirred souls and shook the entertainment world. Graphic, controversial, yet spiritually profound, the film dared to portray the crucifixion of Jesus with uncompromising intensity. It touched millions and angered just as many, drawing criticism for its violence and perceived bias. Despite the storm, the film became a cultural and religious landmark. But Gibson's journey didn't end there. Amid personal struggles, public backlash, and career hurdles, he kept returning to faith-based storytelling, convinced it was his higher calling. From Hacksaw Ridge to Father Stu, the message was clear. Gibson wasn't done telling God's story. And recently, during a conversation with Joe Rogan, he hinted at something far bigger than a film. Mel Gibson and the Mystery of the Shroud of Turin, science meets faith. As Mel Gibson sits across from Joe Rogan, his tone is firm, almost reverent. He doesn't just speak of the Shroud of Turin as an artifact, he calls it one of the most powerful and overlooked proofs of Christ's existence. For Mel, this isn't about faith alone, it's about undeniable physical evidence. The image on the shroud, he insists, carries a weight of truth that even modern science struggles to explain. And he's not the only one who thinks so. Back in the late 1970s, a team of scientists under the STURP project, Shroud of Turin Research Project, embarked on a detailed study of the cloth. These weren't priests or believers, but trained scientists, many of whom began as skeptics. But after exhaustive testing, many left with one shared conclusion. The image on the linen could not be explained by any known scientific method. Some even hinted at supernatural origins. Mel points to the image itself, describing it with striking clarity. The man on the shroud bears all the physical traits of a first-century Hebrew male: long hair, beard, and a body brutally tortured. Deep wounds are visible on the torso and face. Piercing marks on the hands match what would be expected from crucifixion. And then there's the cloth itself. Scientists and historians who've studied the weave pattern say it's consistent with linen used in the 1st century. And the pollen samples? They've been dated to over 2,000 years ago, originating from plants native to Jerusalem and its surrounding areas. Perhaps the most chilling detail comes from Mel's mention of coins. A translator who worked on the Passion of the Christ once pointed out that the faint imprint of Roman coins, specifically from the reign of Tiberius, can be seen over the eyes of the image on the shroud. A Roman burial custom, this practice was meant to pay the ferryman of the dead. That level of cultural and historical accuracy can't be ignored. Mel also explains how earlier carbon dating tests that dismissed the cloth's age were flawed. They tested sections of the shroud that were repaired in the 15th century, following fire and water damage. Scientific evidence of the Turin shroud. Has science finally caught up with religion? Stay glued, the next revelation will make everything clear. Unlocking the mystery, the science behind the Shroud of Turin. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has mystified scholars, scientists, and the faithful alike. This ancient linen cloth, stretching more than 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide, bears the haunting image of a man who appears to have been whipped, crucified, crowned with thorns, and pierced through the chest. Many believe this is the actual burial cloth of Jesus Christ. But is there real science to support that claim? In 1978, a group of 33 scientists from the United States formed the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, and conducted the first in-depth scientific analysis of the cloth. After 2 years of preparation, the team was granted just 120 hours to run their tests on the Shroud in Turin. They worked in shifts around the clock, gathering an immense amount of data using the most advanced techniques of the time. Their main question? What exactly created the image on the cloth? After 3 years of studying the results, the scientists released a statement declaring that the image was not made by an artist, but was that of a real human being, a man who had been scourged and crucified. The blood on the shroud tested positive for hemoglobin and serum albumin, confirming its biological origin. No paint, ink, or pigment could be found that could explain the mysterious image. Despite this, a decade later in 1908, carbon-14 dating conducted at 3 prestigious labs suggested that the shroud originated between 1260 and 1398 AD. This seemingly placed it in the medieval period, fueling claims that it was a clever hoax. But there was a problem. Scientists had unknowingly tested a portion of the cloth that had been repaired after fire damage in the 1500s, using dyed cotton instead of original linen. Recent advancements in technology have reopened the case. Dr. Liberato De Caro of Italy's Institute of Crystallography applied a cutting-edge method known as wide-angle X-ray scattering, WAX. His findings, published in the Heritage Journal, revealed that the fibers in the shroud are nearly identical to samples from 1st century Israel, specifically around the time of the Roman siege of Masada, 55 to 74 AD. Adding to this, the physical features of the man on the shroud, the wounds, the thorn marks, the bruises, align perfectly with biblical descriptions of Jesus' crucifixion. The presence of ancient pollen from the Jerusalem area further ties the cloth to the Middle East. And yet, the Vatican has declined any further testing, locking the 1978 findings as the official scientific record. Unsolved Mystery, the enigma of the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin has intrigued scientists, historians, and believers for centuries, with its markings resembling a man at the center of the mystery. While there's still no definitive answer to how the image appeared on the fabric, numerous theories have been proposed over the years, each more perplexing than the last. One of the earliest investigations into the shroud took place in 1978 when an international team of experts under the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, attempted to uncover the origins of the image. Despite their efforts, they couldn't solve the puzzle. However, they did eliminate one possibility. The image was not a painting, as no traces of pigment or dye were found on the linen. In 2002, Raymond Rogers, a chemist from the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, proposed a theory that the image could have been created through a chemical reaction between the fabric and the body it encased. His suggestion, while intriguing, only added to the list of theories without offering a conclusive answer. Fast forward to 2014, when a new hypothesis emerged, suggesting the image may have been caused by radiation following an earthquake. The theory posits that seismic activity could have triggered a burst of energy, leaving a lasting imprint on the shroud. This idea, while speculative, adds another layer of complexity to the mystery. In 2015, a research team from the Spanish Center of Syndenology made a fascinating discovery. The bloodstains on the shroud were of the AB blood type. This finding is significant because AB plus blood is rare and most commonly found in the Middle East, adding a geographical connection to the shroud's origins. The blood itself also contained high levels of creatinine and ferritin, indicating severe trauma, consistent with the injuries a crucified man would endure. Despite the various theories, one thing remains clear. No one has successfully replicated the shroud. The uniqueness of the blood, pollen, fabric weave, and image itself makes it nearly impossible to recreate. Researchers have conducted numerous tests, all of which have failed to replicate the intricate details and precise structure of the shroud's image. The image on the shroud is particularly baffling. It's not a traditional painting or drawing, but a discoloration that occurs only on the very outer layers of the fabric, as if microscopic pixels have been imprinted on the fibers. These discolorations are so shallow that they penetrate only a fraction of the width of a human hair. To create an image of this nature would require an extraordinary burst of high energy, something that science has yet to fully comprehend. In 2011, researchers from the European Nuclear Energy Agency, ENEA, achieved a breakthrough of sorts by recreating a scorch mark with a similar depth and color to the shroud's image using a 40-nanosecond burst from an ultraviolet excimer laser. While this may seem like a step forward, it remains the only time any aspect of the shroud's image has been replicated using light. The fact that this replication was so limited further highlights the uniqueness of the shroud's image. Mel Gibson is one of the greatest Christian movie makers of all time. But what do you think about his dedication to the Gospels? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.